This is Urdizzle back with a walkthrough of one of the more recent courses, Kaho Backwoods. I know a lot of people are playing the new Frozen Valley course, but I decided to do a walkthrough of this one since I had not done so already. So my bag for this round, again, I just focus on my main bag, the Accurate Windbreak Fuse and Compass, because there's so many different discs people use, there's no point in trying to specialize it. So I'll just show you what I've got and let you adjust. Then the rest of my Accurate Windbreak combination, my River, the Explorer, and this pretty musket that you get from 3-starring the new Frozen Valley course. Then my Accurate Glide musket, and then my 2 Wind Glide drivers, my Recoil and my Ballista. And of course the 2 big boys, the Ballista Pros, the Light Glide, and the Glide Skip. So those are my long distance ones, which don't come into play as much on this course because it's a little more wooded. So we are going to go through Kaho Backwoods, and this is a bit longer video because I wanted to show you a lot of different lines on these holes. So I will put in the description links to specific holes so you can click on those and go directly to whatever hole you're looking for. Now, on many of these Kaho Backwoods holes, there's a lot of different ways you can go, a lot of different lines. I think hole 1 is the exception. I don't really see a good path other than a forehand driver usually. So that right there is a forehand Wind Glide Ballista. And obviously people can prove me wrong and find some gap to the right or the left, whatever. But this hole is pretty straightforward. It's a forehand up the middle. I mean, I don't know other way to say. You can try different things, but it's just a forehand. So I'll show you, on most of these holes, I'll show you what I normally throw. So you'll see, again, my Wind Glide Ballista. And then I'll kind of experiment a little bit and show you some of the other lines that you could use depending on what discs you have in your bag. And if you don't have a Wind Glide Ballista in your bag, add it. It's just an amazing disc for forehands, backhands. It's very straight. Those of you that are having trouble on Frozen Valley hole 2, I could throw this same red disc 3 times and get a birdie out of it. It's just such a straight and reliable disc, even on this wooded course. Now, I'll show you a few other shots on this. Again, they're all forehands, but you can use different discs. So if you don't necessarily have that particular ballista or you have other drivers, you could throw, for example, a recoil. So recoil kind of plays nicely for this. It's a little more overstable, so you don't have to put as much turn on it and just play it through those trees. And yeah, there are a lot of little trees there, but the gaps are pretty big, and even if you hit them, you're still going to have a reasonable shot. But I don't mind being long and up on that hill because you don't have to worry about going long. If the best disc you have is a musket, my advice would be to go play other courses. But so here I'm trying the up over the top with my Light Glide Ballista Pro, which again, gimmicky. I consider that kind of a crapshoot. Like, I mean, you can get it through there, but it's just, if you're trying to ace run or have some fun with it, you could do that. But I just think that's a lower percentage shot. But yeah, if you don't have the drivers, like, this shouldn't be the course you're playing. But if for some reason you do, you could always throw a skip disc. Now that is my much longer. That was my Ballista Pro, and that skipped almost OB. So you could play a musket or a fairway driver skip shot, but again, it's still going to be a forehand shot. There's really no other way to get around it. Let's see if we can make that. Just left. So yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, it's a nice hole, but there's really not a lot of variety to it. Oh, that's awful. That was just awful. They spit out there. So, I mean, that's what you get when you leave the putts high. And I guess we can show you one more what it would look like with a backhand musket. So, I mean, you could kind of punch it through here, but you're trying to get through. I mean, that made it up there, but there's so many trees there. And this one, I think, I'm even behind the bush. So we're going to slam it through. We're going to actually go back to the left and slam it. We're just going to try to gun it. I'm either going to go long or, yeah, off the top. I mean, if I was actually in a round that I cared about score, I would probably straddle to the right and putt that one 57 feet. But anyway, there you go, hole 1. Hole 2, we shift over to one of my favorite holes on the course. And honestly, I just love holes like this, whether it's in the game or especially in real life. We've got a local course here that the Long Tees has just some amazing 500-600 foot par fours. They're not super long, but you really have to place your drives, and they require good, accurate upshots. And I think that qualifies here in hole 2, because you really got to hit the gap to start with, and then really think about your upshot, because you can't go too far or too far right or too long into the water. And so off the tee there, I use the Ballista Pro, and basically you use whatever you have. But honestly, I'll show you a little later here, you can use a musket and it's perfect. Now, if you're expecting to go mid-range, that's just not going to happen at 688 feet. But that right there is about as good a drive as you're going to get. I mean, obviously you could get closer, but 148 feet. I'm going to throw my backhand here and just see if we can make that. That's going to land on top. Jeez. So that was actually pretty fortunate. It should have been in the water. But again, that's the fact that I'm close enough, 148 feet, to do that tells you the type of hole this is. So I can play my Ballista Pro, or right here I threw my recoil. So if you don't have one of the new powerful, like that was the glide skip, you can throw the recoil. Now you got to be careful, because I ended up back over behind some of these trees here, and this is one of the reasons I keep the compass in the bag. Just kind of aim a little high through the gap and scramble through there, and that's a pretty easy birdie right there. So you've got a lot of options. So I went Ballista Pro the first two, I threw recoil there. It's just any shot that you can hit the gap is going to get you in a reasonable spot that you can get up and down for your birdie. So let's try that again, but this time with my wind glide Ballista, and again hit the gap. That'll go a little further than recoil, and surprisingly the recoil, I turned it over a little bit too much, but normally the recoil will be down here. And so 236 feet, that is pretty much a full power fuse, because it's uphill, and even there it's a little short. And remember, you don't have to get it under the basket. Just get yourself within putting range, close enough that you're comfortable making those for birdie. I mean, you can run that, but that's just a dangerous shot to run. Now, let's say you don't have drivers, which by this point in time, if you're trying to 3-star this course and you don't have a driver, you need to go back and play some of the earlier courses. But let's say, for example, you're trying it anyways. That right there is an accurate glide musket. And so obviously quite a bit shorter than my drivers, but it leaves me a very reasonable 342. Now the fact it's uphill, I'm going to throw that same disc again, but I'm going to turn it over full power uphill. And again, I'm just trying to get anywhere up there on the plateau, and that was actually a little short. So we're going to have to throw that in from 78. And I know, I missed that one. Wow. Okay. So I was just going to start to say right before I shot that I'm usually pretty good at those shots. And you can, if you're good in throw-ins, you can kind of recover from poor tee shots or poor up shots, but even I did not do that. So, but it's still doable with a musket. And here, I'm trying to go this route, which there's no way that's going to stay up. Oh, wow. I thought for sure that was going to be in the water. I was actually trying to throw it in the water, so I'm actually just going to toss this one in the water. I want to show you guys where the drop zone is. So this is one thing you have to be aware of when you're throwing your second shot, is if you go too far, you're not going to get it right there by the basket. There's going to be a drop zone here, 291 feet, and I'm going to throw a forehand glide musket, and that one skipped too long. And I had actually never thrown that drop zone shot, so that gives me an idea that that's a little too far. So maybe we disc down a little bit, and there we go. So yeah, so the glide musket's going to be a little too far on that one. But good options. So just any driver, make sure it kind of finishes a little to the left, and then a river or a musket or even a fuse if you get far enough up there to get you close. So that one, yeah, so lots of options here. Just, again, the key is to keep it in play. There's no point in running that one unless you're trying to break a record or catch somebody because you're behind a stroke in multiplayer or anything like that. So if you play smart, that's an easy birdie. All right, hole 3. This one has a ridiculous number of options, and so I'll show you my personal preference. I like playing this wide left route, and I actually like to go even a little wider than that. I mean, that turned out very well, but a lot of times I'll play it against that wall, but that worked out really well. Got to straddle a little bit. So that was my glide skip Ballista Pro. But again, you don't need that much distance. I mean, this hole is reasonably far, but not far enough. Like 453 is not one where you need a huge skip. So this one, I'm going to try that shot again, play it a little wider. That is the route I like to play. Boom, off the wall, skip it somewhere down in there. Wow, and that even went too far. Usually I'm quite a bit shorter than that, so 61 feet. We're going to put it up through the bush. I think it might hit it. Yeah, didn't. Thought it might clip the top of that bush. So that wide left route again, there's a lot of different ways you can throw this hole, but I enjoy that one. You've also got this wide route, which I have not thrown a lot, so I'm going to kind of experiment a little with it. That is way too wide. So that was my Ballista Pro, the skip, and I just didn't put enough hyzer on that. Let's see if we can adjust. Now the reason for playing this wider route, so that is actually the recoil, a little more overstable. And even that one's a little bit too wide. So I think you need, 117. I'm going to throw a forehand, see if we can hit it. Yes. So you kind of need to play something that's either really overstable or is going to skip towards the basket. That's just kind of a tricky route. And so let's try that again, putting this one on a little turn. And a good kick. So again, it just shows they're just throwing it straight, and that's 151. Let's see if we can get it. Let's try that forehand again around that tree. I might miss a little left. Yeah, it's going to miss. That was tricky. I couldn't throw it on the angle I wanted because of that little tree there, but had the right height. So those last two just aren't going to work. Like, you can't be throwing... Did I make that? Jeez. All right. We'll take that. So you can do that one. There's also an up the middle route here, but we're going to go once more out wide with a skip and put it on a huge hyzer. There we go. Miss the trees, miss the trees. Big skip. And so that turned out really well, but that is so dangerous because if you clip those trees way over there, you're easily 160 plus, and you're essentially shooting for par at best unless you can throw it in. It's just not a smart move. So I like the left. There's the wide route to the right. There's also this up the middle. And so let's say you don't have a driver. That right there was an accurate glide musket. So right up the gut, nice little gap there. And honestly, that's not a bad spot to be in. I'm within 54 feet, so I'm putting. And it's a little downhill. So that tells you right there, you don't need a driver. You don't need a Ballista Pro. If you just throw a musket right up the middle, you got yourself an easy birdie. All right, hole 4. Also, again, I love the variety on these holes. There's a lot of different options you can go. And so this one, there's a left route and a right route. So the right route, a lot of people don't realize is there because you've got some of these trees in place. So I throw a recoil, and I'm going to go up this middle gap. So I'm going to throw my Ballista Pro. Now that is the problem with this route is if you do not have the big drivers, you got to worry about that second shot clearing the water. And even if you do clear the water, are you going to skip far enough to get up by the basket? So that's definitely a risk you have to consider when you're going that right route. So if your fastest disc is a recoil or a musket, you better not go that way. So I'll show you it again. This is a little further to right. And so here's the problem if you go too far this way. You've got these bushes and trees to contend with. You no longer have that gap I went through on the second shot before. So you got to play this wide right route, and you're bringing these trees, which I'm probably going to hit one. And see, that's out of bounds. So that is the danger when you take that right route, is if you go too far right, you're kind of cutting down on the angles you have to get to the basket. Now, the good part is right here, if you get by those trees, it's wide open. And even if you leave yourself short here, what am I about, 130? So, I mean, it's wide open. It's not ideal, and yeah, that'll work. It's not ideal, but it's doable. Now, if you decide to go a different route, so again, you do have the left route, which is a little safer, especially if you don't have the big discs. You can play it way out to the side here. Now that one, ideally, you don't want it to be too tight to the right. Like, that's perfect. Like, you want it way out to the left to give yourself an angle to basket. You see, even though I went way left, that's 470. Now I am a ways out, and that's not going to be a good shot. That's going to be out to the left. Ugh. But the further left you get, the better angle you have into the basket. This is going to be a tough one to hit. I got the tree right in the way. Ooh, that was actually right on line. It's just that tree was in the way. Maybe I should have straddled. But anyway, so if you go left, go really left, and then ideally you kind of want to make it a little further right than what I hit right there. So why don't we try this one right here? Now I'm playing kind of a flex forehand, and again, you got to have one of the big Ballista Pros, and that's about as far up the fairway as you're going to get. And even with that, I've got 3. I should probably go musket. I'm going to go accurate wind, but I think I should have gone accurate glide. Yeah, that accurate wind was just a little... Wow, is that going to stop rolling? 324, I probably should have thrown the glide, but that's still in throw-in range. And yet again, there's another example if you just practice your throw-ins. You can, I mean, it was a great drive, a very average or below average second shot, and I was still able to get the eagle. So I would say my personal preference is this shot right here. Throw the recoil out wide right, but not too far. Give yourself a shot through the gap, these 2 tall trees here. Throw a flex, just a big skip disc right through. Ooh, that was not where I wanted. That was actually supposed to be the left of that, or right of that tree. That was not where I was aiming. And so 89 feet out. Let's see if I can hit it again. Yeah. So, I mean, those were lucky. I probably should have had birdies on those last ones, but I was able to make my way through it.
Hole 5.
Another fantastic hole. This one, I like to straddle to the right and just play my accurate windbreak musket just right over the top of the hill, and it usually slides down. I could usually get within putting range. That one, 65, and this is a little downhill, so when I miss this, I usually miss to, yeah, like that's too high. Oh, I thought that was too high. Usually on those downhill ones from that range, I kind of overcompensate and leave it too high. So I love the musket, forehand musket, and right here, we'll try the accurate windbreak again. You got to miss those 2 trees on the left and you're usually clear. So off the tee, it looks like there's more trees than there are, but if you can clear those first 2, you're okay. So this 65, that wind is really going to push it though. Okay, so I was able to hit it again. And that just goes to show being able to putt out to 60, 65, it's kind of saves you the trouble of having to worry about the wind because the wind doesn't really affect it that much. Now this one, I'm going to go accurate glide musket to give myself a little carry. And this has a tendency to go too long depending on the wind. But, I mean, that's perfect. That's within 30, right? Yeah, 31. So a lot closer. You just got to be careful because the accurate glide is going to get affected by the wind a little more. So if you've got those crosswinds, you have to worry about your tee shot clipping the trees on the left or even that tree on the right. So right there. Remember, headwinds have a tendency to push your disc over a little more. So just be careful with strong headwinds. That right there was a recoil. And so even in a headwind, that was reasonable. 51, I'd like to be a little closer than that. Other than putting downhill, or excuse me, uphill. I prefer being short of it and putting downhill, but that's just me. So there you go, 2 muskets, a recoil. Now, if you really want to get frisky, you can try, and I don't know why anybody would ever do this, because a lot of these holes, so the previous 2 holes had multiple, that was just awful, had multiple lines you could take. The par 4 with the big lake on the right, you could go the right route or the left route, or excuse me, the par 5. There's a lot of different ways you can take. And then the par 3 before that, you could also take the middle route or the right route or the left. I don't really think there's a lot of options on this one. To me, hole 5 is pretty much like hole 1. There's one option. It's a forehand. It's this one, it's a little left. The other one, hole 1, is up the middle. And I mean, that's it. There's really no backhand route. I mean, could you sneak it through? Yes. But I mean, you're kind of stupid to do that. It's forehand. It's just what it is. So it's a great hole, but and you have to execute a good, accurate shot. There's just not a lot of variety here. So right there, forehand, that is actually my ballista. That is going to go way long. I just want to show you guys that is downhill. So if you're throwing driver like Ballista or Ballista Pro, that's just not a smart thing to do, because that thing's just going to go way long. So 112, we're going to go forehand. Bang it in there. That was too low. That was ugly. Let's redo that one. Let's see if we can, so aim a little higher. I don't think I adjusted for the wind properly. There we go. So again, forehand, musket, forehand, recoil, right up the gut, you're good to go. So this is another one kind of in the mold of hole 5 and hole 1. Now this one is a backhand, but there's really only one route. It's just straight up the gut here, have it hyzer out, and that's actually a little too far to the right. And that's kind of the problem you run into with this one, is you're going to have to, so 64 feet, I'm going to try to putt this, and we'll throw it in. I was going to say, with this one, 64 feet, I feel comfortable making a 64-footer normally, but if it's elevated, it's just, that's a little too far. So this one, we're going to throw the recoil. And again, I thought the recoil would cut a little bit more, so maybe I need to put that one on a little bit of hyzer. So right here, 59 feet, but that's an elevated basket, so I don't know. Yeah, see, that's short. So that's something else to consider when you're doing these. I know they don't have an elevation meter or anything, but as you start to play a little more, you get a feel for whether the basket's higher or lower, even the little subtleties. Like good example is the par 4 on Blueberry. That basket, when you take that left tight route on the par 4, that basket's a little elevated from the fairway. So if you're about 100 feet out, it's not throwing like it's 100 feet. It's throwing more like it's 110, 120. So you have to adjust ever so slightly. So this one is kind of similar when you've got that elevated basket. And there, see, I tried to cut it in a little bit, but that very easily could have hit that rock and kicked left. So now, see, I'm adjusting. 62 feet, I would normally putt that. So you got to be careful on the elevated basket here. I'm personally not a big fan of this hole. I think it's kind of boring. I guess you could always throw like a really big hyzer up this way. I don't know why you'd ever do that. I don't even think that's going to get anywhere close. I mean, I'm in the fairway, but 116, that's just, let's go forehand again. I'm telling you what, that forehand is working today. So that's why I'm so comfortable with that, is even when I miss, it's going to hit metal usually. So if you don't have drivers, you can throw the musket, and I think can at least get you up there for a throw-in opportunity. This is my play, though. I like the ballista, the wind glide ballista, just because it has that little extra distance. And I suppose the recoil would be fine as well, but I don't mind being up over here as long as you get through those bushes. And then 54, now we're going to go ahead and putt that one. Yeah, there we go. So elevated, but 54 is reasonable. But yeah, there's really not a whole lot to this hole. Now, hole 7 is a different story. This is a tricky hole. So what I like to do is I like to throw this. This is actually my Ballista Pro, my skip. I just like to throw it about 2/3, 3/4 power, and that's the worst result right there. So it hits the tree 74 feet. I got to be careful of the wind. Yeah, the wind was too strong. That's going to be out of bounds. No. Let's retry that. So this one, again, this is that elevation I was talking about on hole 6. It's a little downhill, and those are just two poor shots. But no, I like about a 2/3 or a 3/4 Ballista Pro skip, and just let the skip and the natural fate of the disc just take it. And this is that Ballista Pro one more time, about 2/3, 3/4 power. See how it just fades and then skips sometimes up off the hill. Perfect. There you go. So I'm not throwing it hard enough or high enough to bring the OB into play. It's not gonna skip down to the left. So the worst case is actually where I ended up on that first drive, which is about 70 feet back by that tree. I think that's a smart play. So let's try it one more time, put it on a little hyzer. And so see right there, I tried to hyzer it instead of just letting the disc do what it needed to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and retry that one. So again, right there, I can get it to skip, but I mean, what's the benefit? See, sometimes it doesn't skip. I could hit that little tree in the fairway. I could still end up hitting that big tree to the right. So I don't see the benefit of putting it on hyzer too much, because you're not really going to get that much better of a result. Now, if you don't want to use a skip disc, you can always use, like, this is my recoil. Now, the recoil I'll put on a little hyzer, and it's going to hit roughly the same spot as my first shot and kind of skip off that hill. So the only drawback to using the recoil versus a skip disc is you're not always going to get a nice, pleasant skip like that. And I've actually had it skip up the hill and stick up there, whereas my skip disc don't do that. And so right here, this is actually my musket. So if you don't have a driver for some reason, you could always throw that. And again, see, there it is. This is an awful location, because now let's see if I can adjust from before. There we go. So I corrected from my mistakes the very first drive. So you can get there with a musket. I mean, it's a good option if you don't have the discs you need. But I think being able to get by that tree that's up on the hill, so we'll throw that again. Let's see if we can get it by. So skip. So again, same spot. This is why I practice the throw-ins. And you can get more aggressive, but I think the more aggressive you get, you start bringing those early trees into play on the left. And it's just, in my opinion, it's not worth it. So we'll go one more time here with this guy. So there's my Ballista Pro again. Put a little hyzer on it. Again, skip up off the hill. Perfect. And to me, that's exactly where I want to be. Again, I'm not trying to park it. You put me there every time, I'm happy. Just get by that tree and we're set. Yep, that's it. So not a lot of shot options on that one as far as the flight path, but some good possibilities for you. All right, another great par 4. So this one I threw my accurate windbreak musket. And this to me is a position shot. So right there, I'm a little close to that bush, but I'm in a good spot. So there's a tree directly ahead of me. And this is where if you play this, so miss the tree. Ew, that was not a good shot. That had a lot of skip to it. A lot of these will throw off your depth perception. So it's from 97. And what I mean by that is when you look, it looks like there's a lot of trees, but a lot of the trees are actually behind where you're aiming. So you really kind of have to learn the trees and which ones are actually going to be in your way when you're throwing. So I'm going to adjust here and throw the glide musket. And again, I want it to skip past that bush, and it did. So now I've got these little trees right here. So that tree's actually right in the way. 3, I'm going to go recoil. This might be too much disc. Let's go musket instead. Missed the tree, and that tree's about 60, so I should be putting here. 63. So this is downhill, but you got to be careful with the downhill, and I don't know if this is going to be too high. Yeah, see, that was too high. So that, again, I over-adjusted for the distance, and I forgot that it's downhill, so I needed to treat that more instead of like a 60-footer, more like a 50 or 55-footer. Now you can also go, again, this is another musket. You can try to aim a little further left than that one. And so, yes, that's the same gap. I didn't want to show you the same gap over and over. So 375, but this is just 375 is just another musket shot. And I clipped those branches, which is not good. And that's going to be a tough shot depending on the hill there, 90 feet. Now the tree, it looks like there's a tree right there, but the tree was actually behind the basket. That's what I was talking about with that depth perception, just knowing what you're looking at. Now you can get a little more aggressive with, so let's throw a recoil here, and I'm going to aim a little higher so the distance kind of stalls out. And what I'm trying to do is aim a little further left in this gap. Now the problem with going on this gap right here is it seems like it's more open, but you've still got these trees that are sitting right in the middle of the fairway on the other side of the water. So right there, those 2 trees. So I'm going to have to split these. And I did, but now it's going to fade out to the left. So as long as I'm past the bush, I should be okay. 54, yeah, we're good. Yeah, I hope I'm good. Now here, that was, see, that was a little sketchy too, but, so you just got to be careful on the elevation there. So there's a few options here. Another thing, if you want to get really risky, I've seen some people do this one, is try to throw it on this right route. And I've seen a couple people, I've actually made it across a couple times, and you like skip. Now I probably should use, that was probably the wrong disc. I probably should use my skip disc, and you can actually skip across. And if you make it across, it's wide open up there. I mean, you'll see here, I'll throw it up over the top, and that's probably going to be too short. Yeah, 240. I probably should have bumped up to the river. That was my fuse. So now I'm 81 feet. But again, if throw-ins, I don't know how many times I can say it, work on your throw-ins. Work on your throw-ins. Work on your throw-ins. But yeah, you can be a little more aggressive on this right side. But again, the problem is you have these trees, so you can play it to right about here. That was actually my accurate windbreak musket. And I think this is the route that I'm going to start messing around with a little bit, because if I can get it through those trees, this is a pretty easy shot. I mean, there's pretty much no trees. You got those 2 small trees there, which, I mean, we had said I hit those. That's about 60 feet. So I kind of like that right route a little better. I'm going to probably play this a little more and experiment, but I've had pretty good success with that left route. We'll just kind of see how it goes. And that's what I do is I'll mix it up. One week I'm trying one route, another week I'm trying another one. Here I tried to go up the middle, and you got those trees. So you can even go right here up the middle, not to the right, not to the left, and you got a 370-foot shot. So no matter what you do on this hole, you're going to have a 350-foot shot at least as your second, unless you try to clear the water, which is just not smart normally. But again, placement par 4s, I love them. I love them in the game. I love them in real life. They're fun to play. which will lead us to our last hole, hole 9. And this one, I'm going to get hyper aggressive here, play it up through the trees. And now there is a path over here to the right. So if I cleared it, I should have 140, 150, 152. And this is forehand fuse all day long. Now, if I miss this, it's going in the water. Yes. So got the eagle. That's nice. So that's the play. If you play it really far up the fairway, there's a nice clear path to the basket. Obviously, that was kind of a fortunate lie and a good second shot. You can also play it up in the trees here and get kind of a skip. So that was actually my skip disc. Oh, that's really good. Was that about 100? Oh, that's 80. So again, here, I'm going to try to... Okay, that's back-to-back eagles. I'm not going to lie. I don't eagle this hole that often. It's not that automatic for me. So what I like to do, if you're really trying to play it safe, and I'm going to play this out wide. That's actually probably too far. Oh, yeah, that's way too far. That's going to go out of bounds. Eek. So that was a left to right wind of 3 with my glide skip Ballista Pro. And so you don't need that much disc. There's just no need for it. So you could probably go fairway driver, or if you have a recoil or ballista, you can take that right route. But let's be honest, no one's taking that route. Most people are going to take either kind of the high hyzer route to try to get lucky and punch through the trees. Now, as long as your scramble game is good, that works. And I'll show you here in a little bit, there's actually a wide left route you can take over the water. So that right there is my ballista, my wind glide ballista. And again, right in the fairway. No skips. 238. Now, obviously, I'm probably not going to make this one. And I'm going to play my mid-range. Now let's go explore up and around. And just plant it there. Easy birdie. So if you're playing for birdie, play it long right. Take your easy shot. That way you're not worried about getting any ricochets off trees. You're not getting pinned behind anything. There's no leaves in the way. It's just the smart shot. Now, if you really want to get frisky, you can take this wide route. So that was my light glide Ballista Pro. And there's just so many branches, though. Like that right there was fortunate to be in bounds. So we're going to go, again, forehand. See if we can make this one. Boom. That is just cooking today. But I don't like this route because there's too many little branches. And you got to worry about the wind because you've got that orange, brownish tree that's out there. You've got those right there. I don't know how that got through. Jeez. So that is so fortunate to get up there, but now 90 feet. And again, even if you are right here, man. So my throw-ins are on point today. I get that. But, I mean, that is not a high percentage play, though, in my opinion. So if you're really trying for course records or you're behind a stroke, you can do this. So this one I'm playing a little wider. That is way... So even if you do it, that was pure. I mean, I could see someone getting a skip ace on that. But now I'm right back in the fairway where I would be if I took the right route. And so 144, there's no way I'm going to make this one, too. Okay, yeah. We're going to try that one again. I think I can make that one. That was... So the 3 wind kind of... Headwind kind of pushed it up a little bit. Yeah, that's a tough shot. But, again, lots of options. You've got the water route if you really want to. You've got the right route, playing it safe for the birdie. You can try to punch it high through the branches. I mean, whatever floats your boat. So there you go. That is the Kaho Backwoods walkthrough, and I hope you enjoyed kind of the variety. This one was a little bit longer, but the course was a little bit longer as well. And so hopefully you got a feel for some of the shots that are out there, and hopefully it'll help you get in a 3-star on that. So I will be back soon with a walkthrough of Frozen Valley, which I'm still getting used to, and I know some of you are playing a little bit more than this one. So I'll see you guys in the next video.